And fasting is what we're using. And here I am, a little over 75 hours in this week's fast. Hey, 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 hey. And we're going to find out how I'm doing, what's going on, what's been happening in my body, and we're going to see what I'm going to use to break the fast right here on the show with you. Hey, if you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new year, new you. I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to put their diabetes in remission, get off of medications, who want to reverse their diabetes. And we're using fasting as an amazing tool that allows us to do that. Welcome, welcome. If you're new to me as well, go ahead and put new in the comments because I'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music and let you know that I'm happy that you are here in the community. If you do have questions, go ahead and put those questions in the comments so that I can get to those. Make sure you put a Q in front of them so that they are well recognized to me as we move through the evening, as we move through the show. You know how we do it, right? If you've been following us, and if you're not, this is how we do it. I've got my monitors that's off to my side. I've got my Keto Mojo and my Contour. And then right down below, that's my Dexcom Clarity. And I am actually wearing, I've got a Dexcom G7 on this side, and I've got a Libre 3. I think this is the 3 Plus now on this side. And we'll see what those numbers are here in just a little while as we move into this space. Also, y'all, right over here, right? And you can't, let me see if I can change this, right? I'm not going to show you. Right over here, I've got the stuff that I'm going to break my fast with, and you get to see that right here on the show as we move into this space. If you think you know what my ketones are going to be, because we're going to check those here in just a little while. If you think you know what my ketones are going to be, go ahead and drop that in the comments. Put that in the chat. Take a guess. Once again, over 75 hours in this week's fast. Yep. If you've not already done so, make sure you get over and watch our show from this past Dwain Woode MD Live. We are talking about coping. Are we coping with life or are we avoiding life? And we cope with food. Food is one of the big things that we use to cope. No, sorry. Food is one of the big things that we use to avoid life, right? So those emotions that come up, those feelings that we're trying to get away from, that's called buffering behaviors, and we often use food as one of those buffering behaviors. And we started talking about ways that we can begin learning how to cope rather than avoiding with the food. So make sure you get over there and watch that on the channel. Well, let's go ahead and let's take a look at what my blood sugars are. And this is actually my this is my Keto Mojo app from our check-in last night. And so just so you see that at a little over 57 hours, right? 57 hours. I had been fasting for 57 hours. My glucose was 71 and my ketones were 2.1. So what do you think they're going to be now after 75 hours of fasting? Go ahead and drop that in the comments. And let's take a look. Here is my Dexcom G7. It says that my blood sugar is 81. And let's go over here, see what my Libre, this is the Libre 3 Plus, says that I am 64. And you see down at the bottom that the red dashed lines that you're seeing down at the bottom on the green, the bottom of the green is 70. And so the red is showing that I'm below 70. So you'll see there, so periodically as I went throughout the day, we went below 70, came back up, below 70, came back up, below 70, came back up. And then for the last several hours, we've been in the below 70, so 64 as you see there. And then let's look at the Dexcom. And if I put my finger on it, I can actually see what those actual numbers were over the course of the day. And you'll see there, so right now in the low 80s, 70s, mid to upper 80s, 70s, 80s. Here I went to 90, 96 at one time there. That was right about 3:30 in the afternoon, down into the 70s, 80s, 79s, right? So most of the day, according to the Dexcom, I've been 70s to low 90s. Okay, here at the beginning of the day was at 68, right? So 68 right there, and so right here, and I've last week I think we talked about the fact that you see the spike that's right there. You see that bump because I started out earlier in the morning at 60s, 50s, and then right at about what time is that? 6:30. Then I popped up into the 70s and 80s, and so that was right around the time when I was brushing my teeth. So last week I used a different toothpaste and I didn't get that spike. So I think I'm going to do that again next week so that we could see, because I think some of that spike may be coming from the toothpaste. Isn't that amazing how just a small amount will make a change? Anyway, so that's where I am, and so now let's hop over and let's take a look at my monitors, my finger sticks, and over here is my plate. So I'm gonna try to see if I can get that out of the screen a little bit. Well, it's there. Okay, there we go. That's much better. Okay, and so we're gonna take a look and see what my monitors are. So I've got a Keto Mojo, which gives me both a glucose and ketones. And then I've got a Contour, which just gives me blood sugar. And so let's go ahead and let's get a strip out for the Contour. Put that over there. And then I'm going to start, of course, with the blood sugar strip, glucose strip here. But I'm going to open both of them because remember, the last couple of shows, I had to stick myself several times because I couldn't get a drop of blood, or the blood dried before I could put it on the strip. So we're going to make sure we open the strip and are ready to get that drop of blood on there. Okay, so we'll get this one on here. So that's the ketone strip, the blue one, and then of course the brown one is the blood sugar or glucose strip. Let's go ahead and get that. And then once again, I only have in my container here, I only have these Lancettes, not the single stick one, but the ones I got to screw this off, and then I'm gonna let's see if I get a good poke, because I want to make sure I get a good drop of blood. Let's see, I think that worked. There we go. So we'll start here with the Keto Mojo, then get one over to the Contour. At the same time, I'm trying to keep that blood flowing. So 73 for the Keto Mojo, 60 for the Contour, and then let's get our ketone going. Get that started. And of course, I'm going to do like I always do, and I'm not going to be fair, and I'm going to tease you guys and let that start running. And then I'm not going to show you what it is. We're going to pop over here. All right, so we'll see what that is. We'll come back. So if you think you know, go ahead and drop that in the comments, okay? And then we'll come back and we'll look at that again. So 75 hours of fasting, 75 hours of fasting. And so a couple of ideas, not ideas, but a couple of back points I want to make. If you're joining us for the first time, or if you have not watched us for a minute, or even if you've been following us, let's do a quick review, right? The reason that we are fasting is because we are trying to reverse our diabetes. And the pillars of reversing diabetes, if you've been following, is decrease insulin, suppress the appetite, and reduce sugar. Decrease insulin, suppress appetite, reduce sugar. And when we are fasting, we hit all three of these pillars. When we fast, we're not taking in anything. We're not taking in any carb-containing foods. We're not taking any calorie-containing foods. In fact, that's what we're doing. We have been fasting and we're using water, unsweetened tea, or artificially sweetened tea, or we've said that we can have black coffee. So that's what we're taking in during the fasting period. And so if that's the case, then I am automatically decreasing the amount of sugar that I take in by virtue of the fasting. If I decrease the sugar, then I don't get those spikes and my blood sugar doesn't go up. So my insulin, either insulin that I'm taking exogenously, that is, I'm taking an injection, I'm taking it through a pump, I'm taking it through some other means, or my body doesn't have to make as much, right? So that goes down. That hits pillar number 1. And if that's the case, remember, insulin is an appetite stimulant. And so if I'm decreasing my sugar, because I'm not eating, that hence decreases the insulin because it doesn't have to go up because I don't have a spike. That automatically decreases my appetite. So I've hit all 3 of the pillars with fasting. Now, fasting is simply a tool, and we've learned several tools in the course of our New Year, New You. Right? We've learned about emotional intelligence. We've learned about the 5 whys. We've learned about the heat model, and on and on and on. So several tools. One of the tools that we just introduced was the coping mechanism, the coping skill, the coping paradigm, right? From this past Monday. So make sure you go back and watch that. Another tool in your tool bag. And so fasting is simply a tool that we are using in order to set ourselves up for successfully reversing our diabetes. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about. But before we get there, let's go ahead and let's do a check-in. And I do a check-in because I want you to also get into the mindset or into the habit of checking in with yourself. How are you feeling? How are you? How's your body responding? And these are the 3 areas I want you to be talking to yourself and asking questions about. How am I feeling physically? How am I feeling mentally? And how am I feeling emotionally? Right? Physically, mentally, and emotionally. Because fasting is not just a physical thing. It's not just abstaining from food. There is a mental and an emotional component that goes along with it. When we talk about fasting, and I'm doing a check-in, but we'll come and we'll do more as we get into the fasting review. People often will say that they feel tired, they feel drained, and we'll talk about why some of that is. Or lightheaded, dizzy, sweaty, feeling palpitations like their heart's racing, all those things. Right now, I am not feeling palpitations. I'm not feeling lightheaded or dizzy. I have been feeling more fatigued than normal. I have been feeling more drained than normal. In fact, I told my son on the way home when I was picked him up from school that I'm tired. He said, "Yeah, me too. I want to go home and sleep." So I've not been doing a good job of resting, and so I'm feeling that here in this space. And as I've gone further into fasting, I've been a little bit more drained. Okay, so I am feeling more fatigued this fast or today than I did the previous days in this fast or in previous fasts. But I'm not feeling lightheaded, dizzy, sweaty, those things that would be associated with low blood sugar. That's another thing that people will say, hey, I'm diabetic, and when I get low blood sugar, I feel those. I'm not feeling any of those right now. We'll talk a little bit more about some of that as we go into the show. And then mentally, right, so that's how I'm feeling physically. Mentally, I am not feeling sluggish or dull. I am feeling like my mentation is still pretty good. I think last night when I did my show, I was tired. And so after the show, I was kind of thinking back, and I did feel a little bit more sluggish, okay? In my thought process. This morning, I'm feeling pretty good. I got up early because I had to do a presentation earlier this morning, and so now I am starting to feel some of the ramifications of going to bed late and getting up early. But in terms of mentation, I think I'm pretty good. And then emotionally, you know, this has been one of those weeks where it's been a little bit up and down. I think, for instance, at work, we're kind of settling in. We've been training some new team members. I have my plans that I'm working on for the end of the year. We're talking about what do we do next year as we move into the next year. So all of that are things that I'm doing. I'm coordinating some other projects that I'm working on. So anyway, so all of that this week I think has had me a little bit more up and down than normal. Okay, So how am I feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally? And so you want to make sure that you are checking in with yourself as well as you move through your fasting. Whatever type of fasting you're doing, whether it's a 16-8, a 12-12, alternate day fasting, 1 meal a day, 5-2, extended fasting beyond 24 hours, every other day. Whatever fasting you're doing, you want to make sure that you are checking in with yourself and asking those questions. How am I doing? Okay. All right. And then let's go and let's have our discussion. So in terms of fasting, right? So fasting review, what do you need to know? So I am now 76 hours, 76 hours into my fast. 76 hours. And so what happens in the body? What can you expect during fasting? What are some of the benefits of fasting? And just at the outset, let me outline some of the benefits. Remember, as we fast, we are improving our metabolic health. Let me say that again. As we fast, we're improving our metabolic health. Diabetes is the prototypic metabolic disease. When I say that, what I mean is that it has components of a lot of the other chronic illnesses that we see. And if we can manage diabetes, if we can treat diabetes, then the things that we do to treat this prototypic disease, we can extrapolate to the others. Okay? If you remember, I've said, and we've had this graphic up several times, it's not just about diabetes. Although we're talking about reversing diabetes in this space, even if you're not diabetic, you can still use this to your benefit. Whether it's high blood pressure, high cholesterol, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, coronary artery disease, polycystic ovarian syndrome. If you simply just want to lose weight, right? Because as we get into ketosis, we get fat burning. We'll talk more about that as we get into the discussion on the review. But the prototypic metabolic disease is diabetes, but you can extrapolate from diabetes to all the others, several of the others. There's studies that have been done, and we did a show several weeks ago where we talked about what different fasting methods did in terms of treating certain disease processes. We talked about the types of fastings that there are. We went through alternate day fasting, 1 meal a day fasting, 5-2 fasting, time restricted eating, extended fasting, and on and on and on. So you go back and watch those shows and you will see the benefit. We did what are the scientific benefits of fasting even. Okay. So once again, it's not just that fasting helps with diabetes, it helps with all of those metabolic disease. And we are using fasting as a tool. Remember, we're using it as a tool in this space to reverse our diabetes. So when we talk about fasting, I usually break it into 3 different categories: how we start the fast, how do we get through the fast, and how we break the fast. And today, as I mentioned, let's go ahead and bring this over here. Now, you're going to see, let me see if I can hide that so you don't see everything. You're going to see a little bit about, or you're going to see what I'm using to break my fast right here. Let's go ahead and let's see. Is it all hidden? I don't think it's all hidden, but that's okay. I'm not going to show you right now. Okay. So we'll take a look at that. But in terms of fasting, so preparing for the fast, and there are 4 things that I want you to know as you're preparing for the fast. Remember that fasting, we have to set ourselves up for success. And if we don't set ourselves up for success, then we have a poor fast, and then we blame the fast for either not working or for having complications as a result of going into the fast. But sometimes it's not the fast that's doing it. Okay? So when we're preparing for the fast, there are 4 things I want you to know. 1, I want you to make sure that you are rested. And you see, I've been talking about resting. I've been talking, and when we did a check-in, talking about how I'm feeling physically. And what I'm feeling right now, the fatigue and the, gotta get a nap, is not from the fasting. It is from the fact that I've not done a good job of resting. So coming into the fast, if you're coming into the fast and you are dog tired, you've been up nights after night after night after night, you've not been sleeping, you've been exhausted, coming into the fast, doesn't set you up for success, because you're still dealing with the fatigue from not resting. And then when you get into the fast, you will probably have some dip in energy, and that will cause the lack of sleep to be pronounced. So you want to make sure that you are well rested prior to the fast, moving into the fast. So if you are not rested, even though you're supposed to start a fasting window, go ahead. I recommend delaying that fasting window until you get rest, and then start the fasting window. Okay? So make sure you're getting good rest. We recommend for sleep at least 7 hours of sleep for you to get well rested, or I should say restorative sleep. So number one, make sure you're rested. Number two, make sure you're hydrated. If you're not hydrated, the blood pressure drops. If you're not hydrated, the enzymes in your body that are supposed to be helping you through the fast don't work well. You build up acetone in your body, which is the ketone that we don't like, and it builds up, and you're not able to flush it out. So all of those things happen if you're not hydrated. People become lightheaded, dizzy, sweaty. They get palpitations. And the palpitations, that's an interesting one, because if your blood volume drops, your body, your heart still has to get the same amount of oxygen to the rest of the body. So how do you get the same amount of oxygen to the rest of the body if the amount of fluid that's carrying the oxygen is decreased? Well, you move faster. Right? So the heart pumps faster. So that's why people will feel palpitations, feel like their heart's racing or skipping a beat. Sometimes it's like it's beating out of their chest because their blood volume has dropped because they're not maintaining hydration. And that shows up also as fatigue. So make sure you're rested. Make sure you're well hydrated. Make sure you're not coming out of or going into a stressful event. Yep. Because when we're stressed, cortisol comes up. Cortisol increases. Now, fasting is already a kind of stress on the body, and the cortisol levels are probably a little higher. And now, if you're coming out of or going into a stressful event, that cortisol level jumps up even more, and now we begin to feel jittery. We begin to feel anxious, right? All the things that come along with cortisol, and the higher cortisol causes higher blood sugars, and that stimulates the appetite. And so all of a sudden you start thinking about food. You're like, where did that come from? It's because you're stressed. Not to mention that it is a trigger anyway when we talk about the heat model. So make sure you're rested. Make sure you're hydrated. Make sure that you are not coming out of or going into a stressful event. And then make sure, ready? Make sure that during your eating window that you're eating a balanced meal, or eating balanced meals. Nutrient dense, that has all the fiber, has all the non-starchy vegetables, has all the protein, the healthy fats, the lean, so forth. Make sure you're eating a healthy, nutrient dense meal. Because if you come into fast having eaten non-nutrient dense or high calorie fat or foods that are highly processed, that have high carbs, when you come into the fast, your appetite is stimulated from the stuff you ate before. And so now you're in the fast and you struggle with appetite, right? People say hunger, but struggle with appetite or cravings, and we blame it on the fasting, but it's not the fasting, it's the fact that we didn't do a good job during our eating window. So remember, preparing for the fast, just as important as getting into the fast, which is just as important as how we break the fast. Yep. And the other thing is, if you watched our show from our check-in from yesterday, we talked about how the food that we eat right prior to fasting can have, or sleeping actually, can have an impact on our sleep, and that can derail our fasting as well. Because if your melatonin gets dysregulated because you ate something that was highly processed, high carbs, and you're not sleeping well, now you're not sleeping well, and that shows up as an issue with fasting. Right? See how it all ties together? Right? So make sure you're preparing for the fast. And then getting into the fast itself. And here I usually break the fast up into 24-hour blocks, so 24 hours, then 48 hours, then 72 hours, then 96 hours, and so forth. But here we're going to do it a little bit more finely we're going to talk about smallish chunks of the fasting, because I want you to really understand and see what's going on in the body as we get into the fast. We did a show where we did 72-hour fasting review. Here we're going to do 24 to 36 hours is where we're going to end up, but we're going to do it in smaller chunks so that you really understand the changes that are going on in your body. So when we talk about fasting, the very first part of fasting is really called the postprandial phase. And this is where you've just eaten and you're not eating anymore. You stopped eating, you got up from the table, and that next 0 to 6 hours is when your body is absorbing. This is just the postprandial phase. So the body is absorbing the food. So the body processes the food that you just ate. Insulin levels are high because the food that you ate has carbs and sugar, and so the insulin level has to be high to deal with those. You have elevated glucose because now it's absorbing all the sugar from the food that you eat, and it's taking that up into the cell in response to the insulin that's there. Digestion is going on, absorption is going on, all those nutrients are getting into the bloodstream. Blood glucose levels begin to peak, so they get to their highest level post-meal. And this is important because there are some foods that you eat, some combinations of foods that you eat that will delay the absorption of sugar. Like if you eat protein and fats with carbs, then it blunts the absorption of sugar and blunts the spike in sugar. And sometimes we don't see that rise. So very important to know that combinations of foods can also have an impact. But in the postprandial phase, the body's absorbing it, those nutrients, those calories, that sugar is being absorbed into the cells. Energy levels are high because you just finished eating and all of that stuff is floating around your blood. Right? All that sugar is right there. So you have high energy levels in this phase. When we get to the 6 to 12 hour phase, this is where the insulin levels begin to decrease because the body is absorbing, or all of those nutrients are absorbed, and we've already peaked our blood sugar, and so now we begin to see that the insulin levels are going down and glucagon levels begin to rise. So remember, glucagon and insulin go in opposite directions. When blood sugars are high, when we're eating, insulin comes out and glucagon is low. When blood sugars begin to drop, insulin goes down and then glucagon comes out because it's now going to go and get the food that we stored, and it's going to take it out of storage and begin using it as energy. So it signals the liver that it's time to do that, right? So it's time to start releasing stored glucose from the liver that we stored when we ate and we were in that postprandial phase. So glycogenolysis. So glycogen in the liver is being broken down into glucose. That's the process. It's kind of like going to the grocery store, and you go and you buy a box of something, or a bag of something. You come home and you put it in the pantry. That's the liver. And then when you're ready to cook, when you're ready to eat, you go into the pantry, you get it out, and you cook it. So when we eat, the body takes it, it stores it in the liver. Remember, the liver can store about 100 grams of glycogen. And then when we are not eating and we need energy, the body goes back to the liver and takes it out. So energy levels in this phase begin to fluctuate as the body transitions from using circulating glucose, that's the glucose in your blood, and it's starting taking glucose now from the liver in the form of glycogen. Going back to our shopping example, this is kind of like going to the grocery store and you say, hey, I'm going to fry chicken, okay? And you go to the grocery store and you get chicken. And you get more chicken than you need to fry right now. So what you do is you take some and you freeze it. That goes into the freezer. And then you take some and you cook it. But you don't eat all of it, right? So there's some that you cook and it's on the table. The leftovers go in the refrigerator, and then of course you still have some that's in the freezer. So the one that's on the table that you're readily eating, that's kind of like your blood sugar that's running around. So ready access to that. When you finish eating that, if you want to eat some more, you go to the refrigerator. You don't go to the pantry yet. You go to the refrigerator, take out what's there, and you eat it. So that's what the body's doing right now, right? We've gone from the circulating, blood, and we've gone to the stuff that's stored, and so now we're taking that out and we're eating it, right? So that's the glycogenolysis. And so energy levels here begin to fluctuate. When we talk about, and so this is the early fasting stage, by the way. So that's what we're calling this phase, the early fasting stage. The next stage is where we transition to using fat, because it's been 12 to 18 hours now. The insulin levels are decreasing, glucagon levels are increasing, the liver is releasing stored glucose, glycogenolysis is going on, energy levels begin to fluctuate, right? So we're transitioning into using fat now. So glucose levels continue to drop. The liver is pumping out fatty acids. The liver starts gluconeogenesis. That's creating glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. So fat is being broken down at this point to create sugar. Energy may feel like it's dipping, and this is where a lot of people sometimes will talk about the fluctuation as the body is transitioning from one energy source to another. It's kind of like that hybrid car. So you're going from burning burning gas to burning the battery, the energy that's in the battery. And so that's what's going on now. We're switching energy sources, and you may feel that like a little dip in energy. You may feel some irritability, hunger, as the energy sources begin to shift can show up in this phase. And this is the phase where sometimes people will turn back. They'll say, okay, I'm not fasting today, or I can't fast. But I want you to know that if you kind of make your way through this, then it gets better, y'all. It gets better. So the next phase is where we get into ketosis. So glycogen stores are nearly depleted. This leads to increased ketosis as ketones from the liver come out and fat is being burned and converted into ketones. Now, one of the questions that you were asking or you may have asked when you saw my blood sugars is, hey, wait a minute. If you fasted for 74 hours, 75 hours, why are your blood sugars not lower? Well, they're not lower because as the body converts fat to ketones, it also converts a portion of that, the triglyceride part, the glycerol that comes from triglycerides, that can be converted into glucose, right? Glycerol, glucose, right? The g sound. So that's what happens. So the body is still able to convert some parts of what we eat into carbohydrates or into sugar, right? This is where autophagy begins to ramp up. Oh yeah. So autophagy, well, it began in the 12 to 18, but it really begins to ramp up in this phase. And remember, autophagy is the body's cellular cleanup process. It's the recycling ability of the body to go out and take damaged, unused, bad cells and recycle them. It's kind of like, I went to buy some tennis shoes recently, and I went in and looked at some, and the ones I finally picked up, on the package it says made from, I think it was 20 or 30% recycled material. So that material is stuff that we threw away, right? So when you do your recycling, you're taking stuff that you're no longer using, you're putting it out. They pick it up, they take it, they process it, and it shows back up as something different. And that's what's happening in autophagy. The body's going out and finding those damaged, unused cells. It's processing it and repackaging it and creating new, better, healthier cells. This is where we see the improvement in neuropathy and neurodegenerative diseases. And this is the place where we begin to talk about cancer responding to fasting due to autophagy. So autophagy is the cellular cleanup cleanup process. It is where we regenerate cells, newer, healthier cells. This is an amazing part of fasting. This is also where we begin to see improved inflammation. We begin to see improved immunity. The initial stages of mental clarity may begin here. We did a show where we talked about fasting and how it helps you with focus. So mental clarity begins as the body gets a more stable source of energy. Remember, glucose fluctuates. But when we're burning fat and converting that to ketones, we have an ample source, most of us, of fat that gets transitioned, and that's a cleaner energy source. It's not as volatile as glucose, and this is where ketosis is beginning, and then we're moving into the 18 to 24 or 24 to 36 actually hour period, and this is the fat absorption period or adaptation. Fat adaptation. So physical state, so significant increase in ketones are happening here. We're having decreased reliance on gluconeogenesis for energy, and we're going full force now, right? In earnest, we are burning fat. Fat oxidation increases, more fatty acids are converted into ketones, energy levels stabilize as the body becomes more efficient at using ketones for energy. And hunger goes down because you have a source now. So let me tell you, when I'm fasting, after that first 8 to 12 hours, then I'm no longer hungry. And often what I'm responding to is not hunger, I'm actually responding to social cues. Remember the heat model? So my family is eating. My team at work is going to lunch. One of the pharmaceutical reps brings some treat, some snack for us. I'm on my phone and I'm scrolling, and up pops some cake or candy or cookie, or somebody's cooking something that looks so good. And I'm like, oh yeah, I want some of that. Okay? So, but the hunger is not there. So I'm responding now to my appetite. I'm responding to the brain. Right? So that's getting through the fast. So during the fast, you also want to make sure that you are well rested, because if you're not rested, then you're going to be tired. And remember, one of the things that pushes our buttons, one of the triggers is fatigue. So if you're not rested, you're going to feel fatigued, and in your mind is going to be like, I'm hungry. But it's not hunger, it's your appetite being stimulated, because those emotions are going up, and the emotions will push you through the plan to fast. You also want to make sure that you're well hydrated, right? You guys see me drinking my cup as we're talking. Whatever hydration you use, there's water is always a good option. If we're looking to maintain good electrolytes, there are lots of electrolyte containing products that are on the market. I have a couple, and I don't really use electrolyte containing things because I do a pretty good job, I think, of hydrating. There are sometimes when I don't, but for the most part I do, and I'm doing a pretty good job of maintaining good nutrient-dense foods during my eating window. So I don't typically have to worry about that. But if I did, then those would be good things to use. So make sure you're well rested, make sure you're hydrated, and then always keep an eye out for what's going on in your life. If you're finding yourself during a fast that you are entering a stressful period, it may be time to interrupt the fast, deal with whatever that is, and then restart the fast later. So remember, always listen to your body. We want to make sure that we are doing this safely. The other reason for that is your brain is going to remember each fasting episode. And you're going to remember the ones that didn't go well most. So if you set yourself up for success, then what the mind remembers is the time we fasted and it worked for us. If you don't, if you have to break it because you're tired, you didn't maintain good hydration, you were in a stressful environment, you didn't do a good job of eating, then the brain is going to remember that, and it's going to, next time you want to fast, it's going to, no, we're not doing that. That doesn't work for us. But it's not the fasting, it's the fact that we didn't do a good job preparing for the fast, or actually in the fast as well. So remember, those same four things occur in the fast. Of course, we're not eating during the fast, but in terms of the rest, in terms of the hydration, in terms of the stress, all those are also relevant for fasting. And then, fasting, preparing for the fast is good, is important. Getting through the fast is important, and how we break the fast is important as well. An important point here. How you break the fast is important, because if you don't do a good job of breaking the fast, you can undo the benefits, some of the benefits that you got in the fast. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. And you're going to get to see here in just a little bit what I'm using to break my fast. Now, I've used several things, and I'm going back to some things that I used initially. Because I found as I've used other things, they didn't quite work. But we'll talk more about that. Okay. And before we get into breaking the fast, I just want to hop over and say hi to one of our community members. I see Jennifer. Jennifer just popped in. Hey, Jennifer. She say, howdy. How are you? Welcome to our fasting review. All right. Okay. And Jennifer, I think you said that you were in a 50-hour fast when we checked in before. So tell me where are you now? We are just now 70, what did I say? 75? A little bit more than 75 hours in our fast. I'm going to break the fast right here in just a little while. Okay. So breaking the fast. Breaking the fast. Important. Right? So here are some tips. 1, monitor blood sugar. Particularly if you're diabetic, particularly if you're dealing with metabolic issues, because you want to know how the food that you're eating affects blood sugar. Because if you get big spikes, you're going to get big spikes in insulin. Insulin is going to stimulate the appetite. Insulin is going to stimulate weight increase, and we don't want that. So we want to make sure that we are monitoring those blood sugars, and they are an indication of what the food that we're doing is doing to our body. I mentioned a couple weeks ago we did a show where we talked about the new continuous monitor that's on the market, the Stello. If you are not diabetic, then your insurance may not pay for a continuous monitor, but I think that's the best way to monitor blood sugars. I've got 2 on right now, okay? You guys saw me do my blood sugar here a little earlier. If you don't do that, then get to one of your box stores, and they have, not continuous, but they have glucose monitors, they're store brand, that are relatively inexpensive, so that you can make sure that you're monitoring. So monitor your blood sugars. Number 2, portion control. If you are not careful, then you will try to eat all the things that you didn't eat during the fast when you break the fast. I know, I've tried. I told you a story when I first started fasting. I would actually collect all the food that I would have eaten for that week. You know, we have our team meeting at work. We have pharmaceutical reps who bring food. We may go out for food. I may go down to the cafeteria. And so what I was doing is I was saving all of that. I was go to the cafeteria. I'd get what the pharmaceutical reps brought. I'd do what we did for our team meeting, and I'd put it all in the refrigerator. And at the end of the week on Thursday, I'd bring it home. And I remember one week I took it out and I looked at it and said, oh my goodness, this is all the stuff I would have eaten. So I was excited that I didn't eat it. But then here it all was, right? Remember with access? And so I had to train my brain to not collect it. Because if I collected it in my mind, I had to eat it. You know that thing, you have to clean your plate? Well, if it's there, right, don't want to throw it away. So I had to train my brain, I had to change my behaviors to not go and get it and not order it and not ask for it, so that I don't have it piling up and then I'm not tempted to eat it. So portion control is very important. And then eat slowly. Because if you eat fast, you don't give your body, your stomach time to register that you're full. And if you don't register that you're full, then ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, continues to rise or continues to be there, and the satiety hormone, the leptin, doesn't signal the brain that it's time to stop. Because you've just swallowed it, you scarfed it down quickly, and you end up eating more in that instance. And then avoid sugary, highly processed foods. Avoid sugary, highly processed foods for the reason I mentioned. Because if you get spikes in blood sugar, you're going to get spike in insulin, or you're going to have to take more insulin from exogenously. And then that sets the ball rolling in terms of weight gain and then in terms of stimulating our appetite. Okay? And then hydration. Just like preparing for the fast, getting through the fast, hydration is important. Ending the fast is important as well. Just as important. In fact, many of us are probably dehydrated when we end our fast. Because if you're not thinking about eating, most people also don't think about drinking. I have to force myself. I have to actually put something on my desk that says, hey, drink. I've got my cup here, and I pour things in it. So all the times while I'm sitting here, I have my cup, and I am sipping. If I don't do that, I will find myself behind the 8 ball in terms of my hydration. So water, good options, right? Coconut water, unsweetened. Herbal teas, very good for breaking the fast. Proteins, make sure you're adding protein. So tempeh, tofu, for those of you who are vegetarian, eggs, chicken, turkey, right? For those of you who are not, that will help blunt the rise in blood sugar that you may get from some of the things you eat. Because it's hard to not eat carbs. Even some of the low carbs things that we eat have carbs in them. So for instance, beans, which I used to use. Cheese has carbs. Nuts have carbs. But the protein, if you're eating protein, not the protein that's in the carbs, so not like the protein that's in nuts, by the way. I'm talking, if you're going to eat nuts, you need to have another piece of protein as well. So chicken or tempeh or even roast, Jennifer. That's okay. All right. And then healthy fats. Healthy fats. So avocados, nuts, seeds are all good places, good sources of fat. Because the fat will blunt the rise in blood sugar. It will delay the rise in blood sugar. And that's exactly what we want. I usually try to stay in ketosis longer than the end of my fast. Now, I don't go for days and days post the fast, but at least for the first several hours, as I get out of the fast, I want to maintain some ketosis because I know if I do that, I'm burning more fat and my weight is going down. I'm becoming more insulin sensitive. Yeah. Okay. And then broths. Broths are very good for breaking the fast. Vegetable broth, for those of you who may be vegetarian or vegan, or even if you're not, if you like vegetables. And then, of course, bone broth is very good as well. So all of those will help you as you are moving through the end of the fast. And so I've got some stuff here that we're going to break the fast with here in just a little bit. I'm going to move that back out of the scene because we have one more thing that I want to do, a couple more things I want to do before we go there. But some considerations in breaking the fast, right? When breaking your fast, you want to choose foods that help you maintain stable blood sugars. Because if you don't have stable blood sugars, then your appetite is going to be stimulated, and that's going to set you up for difficulty in the post-fast period. Right? Foods that will help you maintain stable blood glucose levels. You will also have foods that are nutritionally balanced and that are gentle on your digestive system. Right? I think I said yesterday that I had some beef brisket once. It was plain, by the way. I didn't have a whole lot of stuff on it, and it was good. Now that I'm thinking about it, I need to get some more. So we want to focus on low glycemic foods, glycemic index foods. Remember, those are glycemic index that's less than 50 or 50 or less. Lean protein, healthy fats, and then you want to make sure that you are remaining well hydrated. If you do those things, then your fast ends up where we want it. And now we've done a good job of preparing for the fast. We've done a good job of getting through the fast, and we've done a good job of breaking the fast. So all three phases are super, 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 super. How many times did I say super? Super important. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and let's hop over and let's take a look at my report, because I want to see what has been going on with blood sugars. We'll come back and we'll look at my ketones in a minute. But if you look at the screen, that is my blood sugar. My average blood sugar over the last 14 days is 132. All right, so 132 right here. I'm in target 90% of the time, with target being 70 to 180. My glucose management indicator is 6.5. That means it's a surrogate of my glucose, of my A1C. So if I were to get an A1C, it would approximate 6.5. If I change this to a 90-day average, you'll see that my average blood sugar is 130, 133. I'm in target 86% of the time, target being 70 to 180, and my glucose management indicator is 6.5. Okay, so pretty good. So we tell people that we want them to shoot for 6.5 in terms of their blood sugar, and lower as we're moving into reversing, right? If I take a look at my actual report, when that comes up here, we want to look at my blood sugar. So I started fasting right here about 1 o'clock, 75 hours ago, almost 76 now. And so this is where I ate my last meal, and you see the blood sugar spiked up and then started coming down. And so at 0.0, my blood sugar was 137, and at 24 hours, 128. At 48 hours, 102. And then at 72 hours, 73. And then now you'll see that that's kind of fluctuating there. And so here's a good question, right? And you're asking, I'm going to answer it anyway, is, hey, why is my blood sugar spiking? Why is it going up and down right there? Well, remember, my body can still create sugar. It can still create glucose from fat. That glycerol component that I talk about, yeah, that can still create fat. So that tells me that my body, it goes down, my blood sugar goes down because my sugar that I've eaten from the glycogen and all that is down, but my body is burning fat, and some of the fat, some parts of the fat is being converted into sugar. So I'm excited when I see that. Right, when my blood sugar goes down and then all of a sudden starts popping up, I like that because that tells me that I'm in ketosis and I'm burning fat. And my weight's going down, I'm becoming more insulin sensitive, all autophagy is going on, cellular cleanup is going on. Exciting for me. Right? Good place for us to kind of hop over, and we're talking about ketosis, and take a look to see what my glucose or my ketones are. What do you think my ketones are? Right, so 70, and when we did this, we were at 75 hours, live over 75 hours. So let me go ahead and pull up my Keto Mojo app and go ahead and turn on my Keto Mojo meter. And then that should, we'll get that syncing. All right, so 73 was that's what my blood sugar was, and my ketones are 3.0. Remember yesterday when we did our check-in, I was at 71 blood sugar, and my ketones 2.1. So now at a little over 75 hours, blood sugar is 73, and ketones are 3.0. When we talk about ketones, ketones that are less than 0.5 considered normal. 0.5 to 1.5 is considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 therapeutic ketosis. So if we're gonna go into fat burning, if we're gonna go into ketosis, I guess let me say that. If we're gonna go into the ketosis, we want our ketones to be 0.5 or higher. So if you're eating foods and you want that to you want to be in ketosis, that's where you need to be. And a great way to do that is actually to monitor, right? The best way to do that actually is monitoring. All right, so get a monitor that shows you both ketones and blood sugars, and that's what my Keto Mojo, this guy right here, that's what it does. Now, there are other brands on the market that will do the same thing for you. Ketone strips will also give you ketones, and also you can get the breathalyzer, the breath ketone. That's good as well. I prefer this because my ketones, with the urine, ketones take longer to show up, and they take longer to go away. So when I check my urine, I could actually be in ketosis, but the urine says no. Or I could be out of ketosis and the urine says you're still in ketosis. Right? So I like this because I get more instantaneous information. All right, so what am I going to break my fast with, y'all? What do you think? If you think you know, go ahead and pop that in the chat. And then, let's see, I asked Jennifer about her 50 hours fasting. She said she broke her fast last evening at 50 hours. Yay! Good for you, Jennifer. 50 hours. 50 hours. She said she broke it with cheese, then the road. That's right. I think now I remember, Jennifer. Okay, you were breaking the fast at the time. Correct. I remember now. She says, I wear a CGM, game changer on learning how my system relates to food. Isn't it amazing? I can't tell you the number of people that have come to the office after wearing a continuous monitor and said to me, I didn't understand what was going on in my body until I put this thing on. Because all of a sudden you can see the food or the activity, the sleep, the stress. You can see what's going on in your body because you're seeing that in real time. Right? People have talked to me about different foods that they've eaten that they thought, oh, certainly this is not going to raise my blood sugar. And they look at it and it's up 200. They're like, oh my goodness. Yeah. So that was happening all the time, but they couldn't see it. They couldn't see it because they weren't watching. Right. Okay. All right. So what do you think I'm going to break my fast with? I'm going back to some old things with a new twist. Old with new. And so what I'm going to do, let's go ahead and show you this, is I am going to break my fast today with some cheese, which I got here, avocados, and this is broth that I've put some beef sausage in. So I took the beef sausage, I put it in the bowl, in the cup. I put that in the microwave, and I heated that up. Right, and so I got a little juice at the bottom, and then I put the broth mixture. And I think I told you guys, let me see if I can pull up the Yuka app. So that's what I used. And then I just put water, and there I have my broth. I think it's a little cool right now because I did it when I first started the show. Let's go ahead and let's pull this up so you could see. So this is the Yuka app. And in the Yuka app, I've scanned some various foods. And let's see. Here, and it's in a bottle. It's powdered, and you just add water. Let's see where it is. This was way back when I first scanned it. I think I showed it last week, didn't I? Ah, there it is. So there are two of them. This one is the chicken version, and I actually mix them. I do 1 tablespoon of this and 1 tablespoon of the beef one. And that's what I get for my broth. And so, so let's go ahead and I'm going to start with the broth itself. It's still a little warm. Now it's salty. I needed to put some more water to it. So you guys are seeing this now right here. 75, 70, almost 76 hours. My very first meal. Ooh, I need a napkin. So good. So good. Yeah, I do need more water because it's good, but it's salty. Now that may be good because it helps with my hydration when I start drinking more water. Ah, delicious, delicious. Now, if you use broth to break your fast, go ahead and put yes. Put yes in the comments. Ah, very good. And then, let's go ahead and get a piece. And I didn't bring a fork. I'm just going to use a spoon. And so this is avocado. And what I've done is I've gotten some, this black pepper. And then some, I think that's sea salt. That's so good. Delicious. Let's get some more of this stuff. This is the broth with the sausage. And I think I have, let me see, do I have the kind of sausage I have? I think I scanned it. Yeah, I thought I had scanned it, but I don't, it doesn't look like I did. But anyway, it's good. Oh, well, maybe. Nope. No, I didn't. I didn't scan the sausage, but. So Jennifer says, yes, I make bone broth from the chickens we raise. Okay, yeah. I like that. Delicious. First meal after 76 hours. I wish you could taste this. Okay. And then how about some of the cheese? Once again, I didn't bring a fork, but that's okay. I'm gonna eat it anyway. That right there is good. Good, good, good. Okay. So that is fasting. Breaking it down phase by phase. What's going on in the preparation, what's going on during the fasting, And of course, what's going on in breaking the fast. If you pay attention, if you follow the things that we talked about, then you're setting yourself up for fasting success. And ultimately, we want success because we want to be able to reverse our diabetes, improve our metabolic health, all the things that we talked about. That is the goal here as we move into fasting, through fasting, and use fasting as one of the tools in our bag of tools. Remember that you have unlimited ability to be successful. Fasting is a way to do that. Fasting is one of the tools that you will use to set yourself up for success. We educate, we empower, we encourage here on the show. We educate with the shows that we do. That's the Triple E formula for success. The shows, the blogs, the podcasts, all of that is with the intention of education, changing our mindset. We empower by the tools that we learn, and we encourage with the community that you are a part of, that you are helping to grow, that you are helping to build. The Triple E formula for success. Remember the things that will push us off of our eating plan, the triggers, is given by the HEAT model. The habits, the emotions, the access, the taste that we have to food. Remember, they are the things that will take us off of our plan. It is not hunger. It is the fact that we've developed a routine of eating certain ways. We have certain emotions that are driving us. The food is readily available around us. And we have the taste that reminds us of something, that memory that it brings, or the combination of perfect sugar and salt and fat, that bliss point where you have it and you just say, I can't just eat one. Remember, when you show up in this space, we want you to join the challenges. Don't just listen. We want you to get actively involved with the challenges that we have once a month. We want you to be able to get in there and be a part of that. Tell us your story. Share your successes. Tell us where you're having some struggles so that we can rally around you. We can build the community, let you know that you're not by yourself. And then if you can be successful, so can I. That's the encouragement that you give when you share your story. And then invite someone to this space. Let them know that there's a place they can go where they can improve their metabolic health, that they have the ability to chart their health destiny. Send them a link. Say, hey, let's go do this together. Let's watch this video together. There are over 1 billion people on the planet. You can be a voice for change in your community, in your home, in your doctor's office, at your church, all of those places. And then remember our pillars for reversing diabetes. Decrease insulin, suppress your appetite, and reduce sugar. That is what we do when we're fasting. It hits all 3 of those pillars. I'm glad that you're here with us. Remember, you want to catch us on Saturday night. Tomorrow night, we'll be doing videos from the vault. On Sunday morning, we'll have our This Week in Review, and then we'll be back on Monday for Dwain Woode MD Live. Make sure that you're here with us. Hey, I'm glad that I'm here. Glad that you are with me. Glad that we get to share as we grow, as we build, as we become consistent, as we move through this metabolic space. That's Woode with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you at our next show.